You know, I've had a lot of friends ask me this question, Dave, how do you stay so thin, or how do you not get super overweight eating the way that you do? So I want to dive a little bit into some of my secrets, some of my tips for trying not to gain too much weight while I'm eating all this delicious theme park food and that sort of thing. Let's get to it. Hey everyone, Dave K here today. I want to talk you through how I manage weight control while I'm eating all of this theme park food. You may be asking yourself, Dave, I'm always seeing you eating milkshakes, burgers, cookies, all kinds of unhealthy stuff, and yet you don't seem to put on too much weight. What's the secret behind that? Let me take you through my top 5 here today. So let me take you through the core 5 here. Getting started off with what you know is number 1. I don't even have to say it. Let me hear it. Let me hear you say it. Come on, tell me what it is. You got it. It is drink water. Drinking enough water. So here's a big thing. Honestly, drinking calories in general, I feel like a lot of the time is just not very filling. You're not gaining the level of full capacity from the same number of calories that you drank as you would if you ate something. And I feel like this is similar, we'll dive into a little bit later, is the sugars. But if you're drinking calories, I feel like even for me, even if I'm drinking, even milk or something that's like fairly good for you as a drink, or one of the healthier drink choices, if you will, I feel like there are a couple beverages that are designed to be meal replacements and that kind of thing, and I'll give you that. You know, those drinks are fine to drink your calories because they're meal replacements. But a lot of drinks, especially common chocolate milk or milkshakes or smoothies, that kind of thing, really, most of the time for me, does not provide any sort of fullness sensation at all. And so you do have to know yourself, but I feel like this is probably the case for a good chunk of people, where you'll feel just as full, if not more full, drinking a lot of water as you would that milkshake or the Powerade or whatever it might be. So honestly, back in college, I was having some issues where I actually gained a lot of weight. I think I weighed more than I did now. That might have been my all-time high so far. So what I did, I saw the nutritionist, and I told her what I was eating, and I was eating like 3 plates of food at one of these sit-down meals, and I was drinking hot cocoa, chocolate milk, and Powerade, and that kind of thing. And so she says to me, surprisingly, like completely, she's like, don't change what you're eating at all. I'm like, don't change what I'm eating at all. And she says, and don't drink your calories at all. Like, get rid of all those drinks. Drink water. She did give me regular milk. She said I was okay with regular milk at that time. It depends, everyone's their own, that sort of thing. But I was on to hot tea. From there, I went to hot tea, regular water, and regular milk. From hot cocoa, Powerade, and chocolate milk. And I'll tell you, it had so much of an impact. I lost like 20 pounds right there, like 30 pounds right there, just by not drinking my calories. And I continued to eat like these 3 plates of food, and it was fine. For me, it worked out fine. And to each their own, but a big piece of why I was able to eat so much in one sitting was because it was kind of, most of my food for the day was in that one sitting. And that sort of thing is something I'm going to dive into a little bit later as well. But that was more or less the secret at that time, was just not drinking my calories, drinking a lot of water. The more water you drink, you'll notice a lot of the time when you think you're hungry, maybe you're just dehydrated or you're thirsty, you need water. So if you drink a lot of water, you'll find maybe you're not as hungry as you think you are, and maybe you'll fill up more room than you think you do and won't end up eating as much. Definitely the core one for me is make sure you're drinking that water. If this is your goal, if you're not worried about this sort of goal, don't worry about it. I'm not trying to push it on everybody, that kind of thing. But if you're interested in these goals that work for me in order to try to manage that weight, even when I'm not eating the healthiest stuff, number 1, drink enough water. Number 2, and we may have alluded to this a little bit already, was avoiding the sugars when possible. So you may see me sometimes sit down for a meal and eat what looks like a lot of food. I've got a full burger and some fries, or I've got a bread service and I've got some brie at Sanaa. It could be any sort of restaurant with any sort of food options, and I'll generally eat a good amount of food. And the reason for that is I'm trying to prevent myself from leaving room for dessert. I don't want to look at that dessert menu and still be hungry. Because if you look at that dessert menu and you're still hungry, you run into problems where it's that much harder to resist the sugars, the sugary items. So if you can avoid sugars and sugary items, you're going to save yourself a lot. Now, this is a challenge in the modern day. And this is a wellness video I was thinking about diving into as well. It might lead to a whole nother video right here. But in modern day, a lot of these items you get from the grocery store even are just packed full of sugar. You know, your cereals or whatever else it might be, your breakfast items. You'd be surprised some of these things, even meats like sausages and that kind of thing, have sugar in them. You're like, why do they do that? So it can be kind of strange. But if I avoid leaving room for the just pure sugar items, then I generally find myself feeling, more energized, healthier, and not as hungry, just overall happier, because I didn't overstuff myself with some dessert. So if you can cut out desserts, I think you are on a good track. You're focusing on just drinking water, cut out those desserts, core 2 right there, you're on the right track. I feel like those are a big deal. And again, some items are going to have sugar in them. Like a lot of the bready items, let's say, I'm eating a po' boy. You may see me eat a po' boy at Mardi Gras, Universal Studios, and you may see me eat that twisted tater or something along those lines. It's got sugars in it, the way that some of these fruits are made. But again, for example, potato, it's a healthier sugar than some of the other sugars you might. I'm not even sure that had any sugar in it. I'm not sure if potatoes have sugar. Moving on, there are healthy sugars. If they're natural sugars built into fruit and that kind of thing, natural sugars built into the food item versus the added sugar, you want to avoid that. And you want to avoid a high ratio of sugar. So again, I might have, let's say I go to Sanaa and a lot of that sauce has sugar in it, but at the same time, if I'm mixing it with the proteins and other stuff, I'm going to feel a lot better and not overly sugar saturated. So if you can minimize not just your sugars, but if you can minimize your sugar percentage, think about it that way. Well, I still want to eat desserts, but I want to have less sugar percentage. Then maybe you say to yourself, all right, I'm going to only have half a dessert, and I'm going to split it with my friend over here. And I'm going to dive into something just like that too in a minute for my core 5 in terms of way to do this. Is maybe I'm going to split the dessert with my buddy, or maybe I'm eating a little bit more protein so I get a little smaller dessert item, or I'm getting the low sugar dessert item, that sort of thing can sort of shift the percentage of sugars that you're eating. I think that's a great start. Number 3, you may say to yourself, yeah, Dave, but I really want to try these milkshakes. I really want to try this cookie, this churro, this funnel cake, whatever it is. And I get it. One of my best recommendations in this kind of case, if you're like me, you want to try it. But a lot of the times you don't want the whole thing. So if you can find someone you want to split it with, or if you can take leftovers. You may have noticed in a very recent vlog, I went over to Kiki's Breakfast Cafe, and I did want to try that sugary raspberry stuffed French toast. But guess what? I had that omelet as well. I ate the whole omelet, and then half the French toast, I took home for a later time. So I didn't eat that right there in that sitting. So minimizing my sugar percentage in that particular setting. If you, let's say you don't have a buddy to share your desserts with, you can then instead take it on the go. You can say, okay, whenever I order some sugary items or wherever I'm getting some sugary stuff from, I'm going to bring that as leftovers. Or maybe I'm just going to get maybe I'll see if they can put in a half order for me. And instead of getting the 3 beignets that they normally serve here, let me see if they can just do a 1 beignet just because I want to taste it and see what it tastes like. For me, I like the taste of these kind of things. I don't like to eat too much sugar, so that's a good solution for me. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you like that idea of being able to try those sugars but just having a smaller percentage of them? Also, you'll notice after you eat a sugary item, the sugar kind of tempts you to want to eat more. You're like, I got to eat more right now, right? That's something to think about. And again, a good action on this is if you can flush that sugar down with some water or something along those lines. I know a lot of people don't want to eat protein after they eat the sugar. You want to end on the delicious stuff, which I get. But if you can flush it down at least with some water so you don't have that sugary taste in your mouth, that'll also be better for your teeth, which is interesting, 1 point there. But also, you won't be as drawn or as tempted to get those sugary items. At least I won't. So that's one solution that I use. You've got drink lots of water. You've got minimize those sugars. If you're not able to just cut out the sugars, split the sugars with friends or get smaller dosages. If you can wash it down with water, boom. That's the top 3 right there. Let's keep this party going. Now this one I would kind of call maybe a YouTuber trick or a YouTuber hack, if you will, where I try to do the majority of my eating. If I know I'm going to a food and wine festival or a Mardi Gras or something like that, I try to do a majority of my eating on screen here, so you see it. So, let's say, for example, I'm going to Universal Studios, that kind of thing, and I know I want to eat all the food at Mardi Gras. I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to have the smallest breakfast, just a tiny bit of food. I'm going to eat both my lunch and my dinner at Mardi Gras. So you may have seen me again recently go to Mardi Gras for the second time. I went myself. I wound up having 4 different items. That was my lunch and my dinner that day. I had a little thing of cereal, a high protein cereal with high protein milk, by the way, which we'll dive into. And I had those 4 items, and that was lunch and dinner. Boom. And I might have had a tiny snack, again, a little bit of protein or cereal, something like that when I got back at the very end of the night. But otherwise, that was pretty much all the food I ate that day. So kind of a trick there, a visual trick to make you think, how is he eating all this much just for lunch? Well, a lot of those times, I'll eat those things, I try to split it up, and that ends up being a meal for a larger percentage of time than you may account for, and being for a day. There's definitely times, for example, I'm thinking about Ohana. I eat at Ohana, and I'm like, all right, this is not the way to do it, but I'm skipping breakfast tomorrow. I'll eat the tiniest thing for breakfast, but then I can't eat anymore. You shouldn't skip breakfast. I think breakfast is the most important meal. You should have a big breakfast, small dinner. That's my perspective. But if I ate a huge dinner like that, I can't eat that much for breakfast the next day. So it really depends on you. But that's kind of a little insider tip, a little YouTuber hack, if you will, Dave K hack of how I can eat so much on screen and try not to put on too much weight. Now, another thing, diving into more specifically those items. When I'm off screen, let's say I'm eating breakfast that day, but I'm not eating lunch or dinner. I've got a high protein milk that I like. One of the high protein milks that I like is a Fairlife. It's got 50% more protein, 50% less sugar. Or you may, if I'm just eating lunch that day, or I'm just eating dinner that day, I might just have salad, and I might just have lettuce and that kind of thing. Super healthy to make up for the unhealthy breakfast lunch maybe I did at the parks. So those are a couple things that I'm doing kind of inside the scenes, behind the scenes, to try to make up for that day where maybe I didn't eat quite as many healthy items, and I kind of went for the sugary item or that kind of thing. I try to make up for that with a smaller meal earlier on or later on, or a higher protein, lower sugar percentage meal. A lot of those kind of tricks that I already spoke to is something that I'm accounting for in that same day or in that same week, or just in general, because I want to try to eat healthier in general. It's not a one-day thing, honestly. Healthiness and trying to stay healthy is not a one-day practice. You don't do one thing one day. Really, a lot of habits are built consistently over time. So am I waking up and doing push-ups every morning? Or am I waking up and trying to eat the higher protein cereal or the higher protein milk in there, or eating a salad every other day or every day, trying to increase how much I'm having that? All those little things consistently over time really factor in, and they really make a difference in terms of, am I meeting my goals in terms of my healthiness, my weight, that kind of thing. And the last piece to consider while you're eating a lot of this stuff, how do you manage to stay in shape, is your energy output, right? So as you're taking in a lot of energy, a lot of calories, you should have a lot more energy you're able to exert in order to balance out those calories. So again, the exercise that I do, the push-ups that I do every morning, do warrant me a certain number of calories that I may not be limited or open to or be able to process. What's the word for it? Digest and process otherwise, right? So if I didn't do those push-ups, I wouldn't burn so many calories throughout the day, which therefore may make it a little bit harder for me to eat so much food and stay in good shape. I don't exercise as much as I should by any means. I'm working on adding those sit-ups and those squats into my daily routine. Sometimes I do some walking, some running, that kind of thing, but not a whole bunch. I do want to work on adding more into the routine, but that's a big tip as well in terms of even that small step for me, the push-ups every morning. You'd be surprised, I feel like, makes a difference. So if you're considering, how can I still eat that food? I still love those sugary items. I still want my sugary drinks. What else can I do, Dave? Exercise. You'd be surprised how much exercise can carry you, even if you're drinking a lot of sugars or eating a lot of sugars. Obviously, it's ideal to minimize those as well. And I'm no health expert, so you don't necessarily have to take me to the bank on this either. But what I would say is, overall, the more exercise you can do, the less sugars you can eat, the less calories you can drink. Those are all beneficial things to help you move towards this goal. If this topic is of interest to you, if you like the wellness information, the healthy information, you want to know kind of what I do and what I'm working on. And I know I still have a long ways to go. I still have a lot I want to work through. I feel like I've maybe put on more weight than I should as well. So it's not all going nowhere for me. But that's just a couple things that I consider in order to be really successful at trying to stay in shape, eating the way that I do. And I touched on how a lot of the groceries, or a lot of things you might pick up at the grocery store, you run into challenges where a lot of these things have sugar. A lot of the processed food these days, more and more sugar is built in. Again, you may even go for meatballs or sausage and find there's even sugar in some of those. And some of the people say, or some recommendations that I've heard, is try to eat as naturally as you can. I think vegetables is a good way to go for this. A lot of people say, oh, make sure you eat your vegetables. A lot of vegetables, most vegetables I want to say are unprocessed. I mean, you may get a salad and there's some dressing and that kind of thing, but at least the leaves themselves are kind of natural, and you're eating a lot of protein in there, and you're eating a lot of vegetables and getting your vitamins and that kind of thing. So that's kind of a solution to work around in terms of the grocery store. If you can eat less of that freezer section, I have a ways to go on this, and eat more of that natural, maybe fridge section or that sort of thing, where, not the breaded items, but the vegetable section, where you can eat a lot of those salads, that kind of thing. And I've been trying to increase my salad dosage as well. The more of that you can do also can help towards achieving that particular goal. So something to keep in mind for you What do you think? Do you agree with me on this one? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you have any other suggestions in terms of managing that? I know I have ways to go as well, so I'm open to your insights for that as well. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and let me know you liked it. And if you haven't already, for more fun adventures, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to stay informed. And until next time, play on.